Imagine a sweltering warehouse in mid-July. A worker pushing through a 9-hour heavy lifting shift suddenly stumbles and collapses to the concrete floor. When Congress passed the Occupational Safety and Health Act in 1970, regulators tried to write rules for every danger they could imagine. But static regulations drafted decades ago simply cannot predict every dynamic risk of a modern workplace. To close that gap, lawmakers included a catch-all provision, Section 5A1 of the OSHA Act, better known as the General Duty Clause. This single sentence gives OSHA authority to penalize employers for exposing workers to severe, recognized dangers, even if no specific regulation exists for that exact hazard. But OSHA cannot just hand out arbitrary fines. To legally invoke the General Duty Clause, inspectors must satisfy 5 distinct elements of proof. First, they must show that a hazard actually existed and employees were exposed to it.
Second, the hazard must be recognized, meaning the employer or their industry knew about the danger. Third, the hazard was likely to cause death or serious physical harm. And fourth, a feasible method existed to correct the problem. Finally, the clause only applies if there is no specific OSHA standard that already covers the hazardous condition. If OSHA fails to provide concrete evidence for even one of these 5 criteria, the entire citation lacks a legal foundation. The most heavily contested part of that equation is recognition. OSHA often proves an employer knew about a hazard by pointing to their own internal documents, such as past injury logs, ignored safety complaints, or routine job hazard analyses. Even if a company's internal records are clean, they are still bound by the legal standard of industry recognition. If external consensus standards from groups like ANSI or the NFPA address a danger, OSHA considers the hazard recognized, whether the employer actually read those guidelines or not. And for extreme cases, OSHA relies on common sense recognition. These are dangers so obvious, like forcing an employee to work near unbarricaded explosives, that no specialized safety knowledge is required to spot them. Under the General Duty Clause, ignorance of a hazard is never a valid legal defense if your industry peers or basic common sense dictate that a risk exists. Let's look at how OSHA applies this to evolving risks. Take heat stress. Through national emphasis programs, OSHA targets high-risk industries during heat waves, using the program itself to establish that the danger is widely recognized. Then there is workplace violence. In sectors like healthcare and social services, the risk of severe physical assault from patients is well documented. Failing to implement protective measures against these assaults can trigger a heavy citation. The clause is also applied to ergonomic hazards. When workers perform repetitive, heavy lifting that predictably leads to joint and muscle injuries, and feasible engineering fixes like mechanical hoists are available, OSHA will step in. The General Duty Clause allows the agency to target high-severity modern risks right now, without having to wait years for Congress to debate and write new specific laws. Because of this flexibility, a common misconception is that OSHA can use the clause to mandate impossibly expensive or purely experimental safety technologies. That is where the feasible abatement requirement acts as a hard legal boundary. To enforce a citation, OSHA must prove that a proposed fix is not only technologically capable of being done, but also economically viable for that specific industry. The General Duty Clause acts as a specific enforcement mechanism for severe, preventable hazards that haven't been codified into standard law. Let's see how well you grasp the legal mechanics of this clause. We're going to run through 7 rapid-fire questions, 5 seconds each. Question 1. Can OSHA use the General Duty Clause if a specific safety standard already applies to the hazard? False. The clause is strictly a fallback. Question 2. Which of the following is not required for OSHA to prove a violation? The employee signed a waiver. Waivers do not absolve an employer of their safety duties. Question 3. How can a recognized hazard be proven? All of the above. Internal memos, industry standards, and obvious common sense all count. Question 4. What is the strongest evidence that a hazard has a feasible abatement? Existing engineering controls that are already successfully used by other companies in your industry. Question 5. Can the General Duty Clause be used for hazards that only cause minor injuries, like paper cuts? No.
It strictly requires the likelihood of death or serious physical harm. Question 6. When OSHA launches a national emphasis program for heat stress, what legal element does this help them prove? Industry recognition. It puts the entire sector on notice. Finally, question 7. If an employee reports a hazard, suggests a cheap fix, and management ignores it, what does this establish? Multiple elements: employer recognition, exposure, and a feasible method to correct it. Navigating these specific legal hurdles prepares an employer to evaluate whether a citation is valid or simply an overreach of authority. To protect your workforce and your business, you need to turn this legal theory into practical action with a Monday morning survival checklist. Step 1. Rigorously document the hazards specific to your operations and proactively implement the hierarchy of controls to mitigate them, starting with eliminating the risk entirely if possible. Step 2. Stay updated on recognized industry guidance, like ANSI standards. Enforce your internal work rules without exception, and always comply with specific OSHA regulations before relying on general ones. Proactive risk management produces the internal evidence needed to challenge OSHA's claims of recognition or feasibility, stopping a citation before it reaches a courtroom. If you want to learn more about workplace safety and OSHA rules, subscribe to HSE Study.